This is the interactive manual for the PBA 400 series of governors. The PBA 400 series of governors provide a complete pump management system. Through voice, animation, and pictures, the manual helps you to understand the governor's features and operation. It also lets you practice basic essential skills on the simulated governor device. The presentation is organized into chapters. Each chapter presents a new topic. Click on a chapter number above to go directly to that chapter. You can use the arrow controls below to rewind, pause, or continue the presentation. Here is a quick overview of the most important features of the FRC governor. Fast, easy-to-use operation. Automatic regulation of pump discharge pressure. Simple-to-use vernier-type control knob, providing a positive grip. This hand-rotated type of control allows for easy adjustment of pressure or engine RPM settings. Starts up in pressure mode. Bright LED displays for the engine oil pressure, coolant temperature, pump transmission temperature, and battery voltage. A day-night sensor that adjusts the brightness of the displays and LEDs to ensure easy viewing day or night. Visual indication with audible alarm if engine limits are exceeded. Engine RPM display. Field programmable presets. No pressure or RPM variation when changing modes. Governors pump discharge pressure from 45 to 300 psi with an option to control up to 600 psi. Automatic responses to running away from water, low water supply, air in the pump, and a no water condition. Self-diagnostic capabilities with retrievable engine information. NFPA 1901 compliant pump panel engine monitoring system. By pressing the menu button, you can view digital readouts in the message display for engine parameters, engine hours, pump intake, and discharge pressure. All of these features have made the FRC governor a complete and easy-to-use pump management system. Pump pressure and engine RPM are changed by rotating a rugged control knob. The knob can easily be used with a gloved hand and incorporates an idle button to quickly return the engine to idle. The governor will always start from idle in pressure mode when the pump is engaged. The governor senses how fast the control knob is rotated and increases or decreases the engine setting proportionately. If the control knob is rotated quickly, the settings will change at a greater rate than if it is rotated slowly. This allows for rapid adjustments. If a control knob is rotated slowly, the settings will change at a lower rate. This allows for more accurate fine-tuning of the pressure or RPM setting. The pressure and RPM buttons are used to select one of the governor's two modes of operation. The current mode of operation is indicated by the corresponding pressure or RPM LED. As a safety feature, when the engine is above idle, the pressure or RPM button must be held for 3 seconds to switch modes. The throttle ready LED will only go on when the required interlock conditions are met. The preset button is used to set the pump pressure or engine RPM setting to a pre-programmed value. The RPM display shows the current engine RPM. If the RPM display is flashing, the governor has stopped increasing the RPMs as a safety feature. A common reason is insufficient water supply. More information on this is provided in the Running Away from Water chapter. The check engine and stop engine LEDs display the operational warning generated by the engine. This will alert the pump operator to take proper measures when operating the pump. The message display is essential and shows the requested pressure or RPM settings during normal operations. It also displays useful information such as low water, no water, and fault warnings. The silence button is used to suppress audio alarms. The menu button is used to access detailed information and program features. The engine monitoring and warning displays show engine coolant temperature, oil pressure, pump transmission temperature, and battery voltage. These are displayed on bright, easy-to-read LED displays. These displays are equipped with attention-getting visual and audible warnings if any monitored parameters exceed safe limits. This is an interactive program. During the course of this presentation, you will be asked to interact with the governor and pump panel controls. For demonstration purposes, all of our pump operation examples will assume that you have properly set the fire apparatus to pump mode. When the interlock circuit has been properly engaged, the throttle ready LED will illuminate. You are starting pump operations at a 3-story residential fire. The blue discharge is being used by the attack crew and the red discharge is being used by the backup crew. Both lines have solid bore nozzles rated at 155 GPM at 50 PSI. Since you are using a flow and pressure meter, it is not necessary to know how many feet of hose is being used, nor do you need to know on what floor the attack line will first go into operation. Use the computer mouse to open the tank to pump valve. At the same time, a hydrant water source is being established. Press the preset button on the governor. Notice that the pump goes to preset pressure of 130 psi. The officer of the attack line calls to have you charge the line. Open the blue discharge valve. The officer of the backup line calls to have the line charged. Open the red discharge line. When a steady water flow has been obtained, you will be able to tell that the line has gone into operation. Any necessary changes can now be made. Reduce governor pressure until the flow is 155 GPM. Note, the flow is displayed in the digital readout on the lower center section of the flow and pressure meter and reads in gallons per minute. When the flow meter reads 155 GPM, you now know that you have the proper nozzle pressure. The supply line is now established. Slowly open the intake line valve. Notice that the governor will compensate for the incoming water pressure and reduce engine RPM. As the interior attack continues, you notice the water flow decreases to 145 GPM. Use the governor to increase the pressure until 155 GPM is flowing. You can tell from the increased pressure demands that the attack has probably moved up to the 3rd floor. Open the tank fill valve. The governor increases the RPM slightly to keep the requested pressure. When the tank is full, close the tank fill valve. At the conclusion of operations, set the governor to idle by either rotating the control knob or pressing the idle button. Rotate the control knob to idle. Rotate the control knob. Warning: if you have a significant water flow, we do not recommend pressing the idle button. This creates a risk of a pressure surge on an intake supply line. Note: if you request a low pressure setting when no water is flowing as shown here, the discharge pressure might be above the requested pressure. As an example, request a discharge pressure of 80 psi. Notice that the engine RPMs are in idle, but the discharge pressure stays above the 80 psi requested. If it is necessary to get this lower discharge pressure, one way to do it is to close the intake supply line valve and use only your tank water. Make sure that the tank valve is open. Close the intake valve. At the end of operations, you can either rotate the control knob to idle or press the idle button. Drafting operations require special attention. Make sure that your drafting line is properly set up and that all other intakes, drain valves, and discharges are closed. The line that you will be drafting from will be the only valve open on the pump. We recommend starting drafting operations in RPM mode. Select RPM mode by pressing the RPM button. Verify that the RPM LED is illuminated. For this example, we will start to draft at 900 RPM, and the RPM preset had been set to 900 RPM. Press the preset button. Pull the primer handle and hold it until you get a steady discharge pressure. When the prime has been successful, you should have a steady discharge pressure. Ideally, it should be above 45 psi. Bring the RPM up until you have a discharge pressure of 85 psi. Slowly open the deck gun discharge valve. As you do this, you will need to increase the RPM. Increase the RPM. You would normally switch to pressure mode now. If you continue to operate in RPM mode, the governor will not automatically increase engine RPM, and in only one case will it lower engine RPM. As a safety feature, the governor limits the increase in discharge pressure to 30 psi by lowering engine RPM. To see an example of this, close the deck gun valve. As the discharge pressure attempts to exceed approximately 115 psi, the governor took over and reduced the RPM, keeping it within 30 psi of the last RPM request. Notice the flashing RPM LED. This is your indication that a RPM adjustment has been made as a safety precaution. To cancel the warning, select a lower RPM setting. In RPM mode, the governor will never increase RPM automatically. You must always make the RPM request. No water, low water, and running away from water protection is not provided in RPM mode. At this time, select the pressure mode by pressing and holding the pressure button for 3 seconds. Notice the pressure selection is automatically set to the operating pressure when the mode was changed. Because of this, you can always smoothly change between modes during pump operations. There are other techniques and procedures for establishing a prime which will not be addressed in this program. Now we look at running away from water, low water, and no water situations during pump operations in pressure mode. An important part of the following exercise is to look at the message display window. It will always tell you what the governor is trying to do and what type of problem it is encountering. You are supplying a portable master stream that has a 1 3/4 inch solid stream nozzle. Two 2.5 inch lines from your side discharges are feeding the master stream. You are getting water from a relay pumper. Open both discharge valves. A 1 3/4 inch solid bore nozzle will flow 800 GPM at 80 psi. Increase the pressure request until both flow meters read a total of 800 GPM. Notice that the current water supply is only able to supply a total of 600 GPM. As soon as the pump started running away from water, the governor took the appropriate action and warned you as well. Notice the message display shows operator RPM limit. If you try to adjust the discharge pressure, the governor will respond as if it was a manual throttle and only change the RPM, not the pressure request. The preset pressure setting will also be locked out. When you get a sufficient water supply established, it will go back to a normal mode. This is the maximum water you will be able to get out of the pump until you increase the available water supply. You call on the radio to have your supply water pressure increased. As more water becomes available, the governor automatically changes the RPM to deliver the requested pressure. Adjust the pressure until you get a total flow of 800 GPM. If you did not have flow meters, you would have had to do friction loss calculations. In this example, we simulated 300 feet of a double lay 2.5